Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Human Chess series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and we are going to take a look at something hot off the press. It's the big matchup in the Dutch Women's Championship that happened today. It's Machteld van Foreest against Eline Roebers. Now, both these players are young and very talented. Eline Roebers, who played black in this game, is number one seed and was leading by half a point. Machteld van Foreest, number 3 seed, in second place, half a point behind. So, yeah, it was a big matchup. And, well, the Dutch Women's Championship, really short tournament this year, just 5 rounds. So, every game is absolutely crucial. Now, actually, such a short tournament, it could have led to a lot of caution amongst the players. But actually, they responded beautifully, and they've just given us a treat, really, with really interesting and sharp attacking games. So you sort of expected this one to be like that, and it did not disappoint. As you can see, this was a King's Indian 4 pawns attack. But let's have a look how it came about, because actually that was very, very interesting indeed. The first interesting thing is that Machteld went 1d4. I had a quick look at a repertory before the game started, and I found 181 games with 1 e4, and just 1 game with 1 d4, played in 2017 when she was 10 in actual fact. So this is a very unusual choice, and it must have surprised Eline quite a bit, I would expect. The interesting thing is that, I looked a little bit at Eline's repertory as well, and that actually seemed pretty broad. Against 1d4, all sorts of things. She played King's Indian, mainly, I think, but also the Slav, and, seemed to be hinting at some sort of Nimzo Indians, also a Modern Benoni through a special move order. There was a lot, so wouldn't really strike me as the natural person to play a move like 1d4, that you haven't really played before. But that makes me think maybe that Machteld has been working quite hard on 1d4 and just decided that this was the game where she wanted to launch it, rather than it just being specifically against Eline, because frankly, that would be just for that one game, that would be so much work. I find it hard to believe that could be done, really. The great thing, of course, was that the tournament stopped for a couple of days, Christmas and Boxing Day, so there was quite a bit of time to get new variations into your head, if you needed to. So this was a really good surprise after that break. So Eline played something that actually she hadn't played before, which was to play the Modern Benoni directly like this. I'd seen a game where she played e6, knight f3 and then c5, offering a Modern Benoni where white's already played knight f3, which is important, as we'll see later. But I'd never actually seen it through this move order. So d5, e6, knight c3. And now this is a very interesting thing. When you put the engines on this, modern engines, and just let them analyze for a long period of time, they basically reject what humans have been doing for years and years and years, and they do not want to play the move e takes d5, c takes d5. And I'll show you why. It's to do with a very specific variation called the flick knife variation. What the engines want to do is to go d6, and after e4 to go g6, and just delay taking on d5. Now that's got some minuses as well, but it does avoid the variation that we're going to see a bit later in the game. But e takes d5, c takes d5. This is how human players have played it since God knows when. e4, g6, f4, big attacking move, bishop g7. But now a very interesting moment, because the move that black players are all afraid of, and the move that engines are afraid of too, is bishop b5 check, which is the so-called flick knife variation. What's the idea? Well, it's a disruptive move. Black's big problem is that natural development is all wrong. Bishop d7 allows e5. This was a speciality of the English IM Andrew Martin for a little while in the 1980s, but it really is quite bad. And knight bd7 allows e5. And this was a really popular line when I was about 12 or 13, and pre-computer age, lots and lots of games, but with the engines basically, all of the doubts can be removed, and you just know that white's just quite a bit better. So basically what they have to do nowadays is knight fd7. And then you go a4, and then there's a couple of moves. You can go queen h4 check, just to try and tease out a little bit of a light square weakness, or you can go castles, and then white goes knight f3. And, why is this so good for white? I mean, the key point is that, black needs that pressure against e4, because black doesn't want whites to get settled with a big centre and the threat of playing e4 to e5 all the time. But by playing bishop b5 check, you force the knight away from f6 to d7, where it's no longer attacking e4. It's going to have to move back to f6, which is going to cost you another tempo, and that just means you're just going to be too slow to undermine this e4 pawn. And if you have a look, in engine games, this is scoring so well for white. It really is just very, very strong indeed. So yeah, obviously you can play it in human games, but it's no fun. But Machteld just played knight f3 directly, castles and bishop e2, and this transposes exactly back into a line that you normally get through the King's Indian four pawns. I'll just show you how that goes. That's d4, knight f6, c4, and then g6. Knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6, f4. This was one of my loves when I was a little bit younger than Machteld. So bishop e2, e takes d5, c takes d5. Yeah, we're into exactly the same position. So I'm pretty sure that Machteld had prepared the four pawns attack against the King's Indian, which would have been Eline's, I think, most normal line to play. And the thinking was, if you get offered a modern Benoni, no point in learning these bishop b5 lines. Just go back to what castles, bishop e2, and that's what you spent the last 2 days learning. So great. And yeah, this is quite a tough line for black if you can't remember it very well. And I didn't see any games of Eline against the four pawns attack. So it's maybe likely that she hasn't faced it too often. And a lot of these lines have been worked out to draws. I mean, essentially the whole four pawns attack is just a draw, but yeah, the lines can be very scary for black, and a good perfect recall of a few lines is very, very useful for allowing you to navigate through it. I know, I've played the King's Indian quite often in Bullet or something, and whenever I face this line, and you're trying to piece together, quickly, what on earth was I supposed to do? It's very difficult. There are some lines that that are just not very easy to piece together. I mean, there's a number of good things. I mean, b5 is one main line. That's what Eline played. Rook e8 is the old main line. That's also fine-ish for black. I think I saw knight bd7 being recommended in a book recently, followed by rook e8 and just attacking this pawn on e4, which I think it looked like a pretty good line, to be honest. The old-fashioned line is to play something like bishop g4, and then you take on f3 and you go knight bd7, and try and hold back the white e-pawn. I mean, white gets the two bishops, and big space advantage. You start expanding on the king's side as well with g4 to g5, but it's vaguely playable for black, although it's wouldn't be your favorite thing. I mean, it's hard to, I was thinking during the game, what would be the cleverest thing, to play, but it really depends on how much you can remember, and I think I would have been tempted, with something like knight bd7, because as far as I remember, I think white plays castles and then rook e8, and then white finds it very hard to get an e4 to e5, which sort of, feels like it keeps you safe, but the lines are quite complicated, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, Eline played b5, which is a great move, but after e5, I mean, basically there's one move, and you've got to take and go knight g4, if I remember right. And well, I mean, we get stuff like bishop g5, and you get d6, and the knight comes into d5. Crazy stuff. It's but that's really, that really is the move. Eline played something unusual, knight fd7. Actually hasn't scored too badly for black, but the engines absolutely hate it. Stockfish is going to above +1 when it sees it. yeah, I mean, not necessarily a bad idea, but yeah, I don't know. I do wonder whether, maybe something a little bit quieter, a move earlier, might have been a better choice. The reason I say that is that this is, after all, one of Machteld's first games with 1d4, and modern players are way more versatile than people in my day. But still, if you're really a 1e4 player, playing 1d4, you do sometimes have the wrong reflexes. So just trying to get into some sort of typical, not super critical, but typical line, and just saying, okay, well, you can't rely on your preparation anymore. I give you a little advantage, and then go for it. Now play like a real 1d4 player. That can be quite effective as well as a technique. So something like bishop g4 then would be quite sensible. But okay, b5, e5, knight fd7. There's a couple of moves. Castles is very strong. I think bishop b5 was the main engine move. D takes c5 and castles. a6, and now a couple of moves. Bishop c6 was stockfishes. Bishop a4 was dragons, takes. And white's got a very nice position here. Plenty of open lines. Kingside a little bit weak. Strong d pawn. The engine games here were ending in wins for white, which is normally indicative of a fairly serious advantage. Engines don't just win games against each other, this early in the opening. So, could be that was very strong too, but whoops, I'm terribly sorry. Giving you a sneak preview there, but castles was Machteld's move, and very strong. So b4, and now knight e4, and this knight is pointing where it wants to be, right? We're going to, after takes, well, that actually happened in the game, d takes c5, we've got bishop g5 coming in, our knight's heading for f6. This looks perfect, and already this is pretty scary for black. However, after knight takes e5, slightly a surprising moment in a way, because it just feels so like you have to somehow play bishop g5, but Machteld didn't do that. I'll just show you what was happening in my games. The engines played bishop g5 mostly. We'll also have a look at a game with knight takes e5. So you take off, rook takes, give a check here to get the bishop out. Now you can't go queen d5 because of knight f6 check, like that, and bishop f6. Got queen takes d5, not good. F6 and then bishop h6, it's just getting a little bit desperate for black already, because if you do something like rook f7, I don't know, bishop c4, something like this, threatening d6, it's just going to be really, really horrible for black. So the engines were already looking at just giving up the exchange like this, but this is a pretty nice position for white, and my engines were just winning all the games. Bishop's coming round to c6, and then we'll do something on the king side possibly. So that was pretty strong already, and another idea was just to take on e5, takes, and go bishop g5, and then bishop h6 in this way. And after rook e8, go king h1, and the idea is just f5. We're going d6, very strong move. Threatening queen d5 check. You go queen h4, and now the tactics get incredible here. Bishop f4, bishop d7, bishop c4 check, and d7. Takes and takes. We're threatening queen takes f7, and after rook e7, we've got this gorgeous move, knight takes c5. Because if you take here, I go check, and then take this one off, and I've got rook and 2 pieces for the queen. So bishop f4, and then I go rook takes f4, and if queen f4, I just go knight e6 check, I guess, and takes is pretty strong. So the engines they carried on with some game. Takes check, queen f4, knight e6, queen f3 check, king f1, king e2. The king moves up, and white is white obviously stands very, very well here because, just mate to the king to start with. But, super sharp. But it does feel quite, natural, really, to get that bishop going to g5, force that f6 weakening, and then, when you've played f6, it just makes the move d6 that much stronger. what Machteld did was play, obviously a move that's very typical, but play the move d6, but without that move bishop g5, and it just d6 isn't half as strong really if this diagonal isn't open. So the engines were once again saying equal. So but it was it was sort of clear really from the start the way these players were playing, no compromises, that this was going to be a super tense game. The advantage was going to possibly go back and forth, and then just going to see who comes out on top at the end. So takes played, bishop g5 now, queen b6, and the engines wanted to play bishop e7, which is also pretty interesting. And knight g5. You're not really aiming to take this one. You're just anchoring it there to hold the d6 pawn and basically block, all of black's pieces. And then you're going to be aiming either for this one or for this one. Looks unbelievably scary to me, I have to say. But the engines were quietly satisfied. They felt they could bolster up the position like this, and get the queen to d5, and hold stuff. But it's very dangerous. The engines wanted to give back the exchange like this. But okay, this bishop is annoying, but it's doing a limited amount now, and obviously we've got these queenside pawns marching, so any three results possible in a human game. But that was bishop e7, which is what the engines really wanted. Bishop c4, pretty nice move. Again, very similar, threatening bishop takes f7. The only problem is that after bishop b7, this knight doesn't have g5 to move to. When you played bishop e7, that freed g5 for the knight, which was a great follow-up square. Whereas here, after bishop c4, bishop b7, you don't have that. And here Machteld actually made a tactical error, not an obvious one, but an error nonetheless. She played the move queen f3, which looks great. It protects the knight on e4 and threatens bishop takes f7. The engines preferred queen g4 in actual fact, hitting the knight on d7, basically not stepping into a pin. Queen c6, rook e1, knight b6 was the engine move. This is really, I'm looking at it, and I feel like I'm going to need quite a little bit of time to determine whether I'm surviving this or not as black. The engines thought white was bishop f6, takes, knight f6, rook e5, queen d6, queen g5 was the main engine line, and then there were just various perpetual checks. For example, queen d4, queen d1, queen d4, rook f2, and white's also got perpetual check options with knight h5, knight f6. So that was basically how the game was ending, and it was just queen g4, again developing the queen, but attacking the knight and not stepping into a pin there. Because after queen f3, what black could have done here, not obvious, was the really strong move king h8. So you're just stepping out of this attack, and now you're threatening f5. And if you get in f5, then this is really dangerous, right? Because you're chasing this knight away on e4, and then the d6 pawn will go, and actually then you don't have very much at all. So and the key thing is that if you go bishop f7, this looks really, really dangerous, because surely you're going to get a piece here, aren't you? And this king's going to feel it. But black's got the stunning idea c4 and queen d4, and so we're providing some extra support here, and at the same time we're exploiting this pin of the knight. And it's so bad that after rook e1, black can also play knight c5, again just getting onto that pin. But because you're covering f6 with the bishop and the queen, there's no way that you can finish this off. Queen f6 would be brilliant, but I just take, and after takes I take here, and then this one is hanging as well. So king h8 would have been absolutely winning in actual fact, but hard to see. And maybe not even just hard to see, but also hard to evaluate as well. So black played bishop e4, which looked very reasonable to me. You get rid of that knight, okay, a check happens, queen e4. It's all just hanging together for white, with sticky tape really. Rook f7 doesn't work because the a8 rook is hanging, but that feels like a little bit of luck really, in a way. Queen takes d6, rook d1, bishop d4, check king h1. And when I looked at this position from afar, I didn't really see that much danger because I thought, well, okay, white is threatening a move like bishop e7, forking these two. But okay, black's got to move, and you just sidestep that, and then we're attacking the bishop on f7. That's going to restrict where the queen can move to. This can't be bad for black, right? And so yeah, I mean, I definitely, I could thoroughly understand that Eline thought, this was really, just absolutely fine for black. But yeah, the engines are on plus 1.5. They really hate this, and the reason for it is that actually this bishop on f7 is not in any danger. White's got enough threats to keep it out of danger, and then afterwards the black queen is just getting into trouble, and of course the king's restricted as well. So queen e5 was played by Eline, which is the best move, offering the exchange of queens, attacking the bishop on g5, trying to move this queen away from here so that we can take on f7. And Eline played, I think, the second best move here. Queen g4 was the best move according to the engines, but you need to spot a really cunning idea, which is if rook f7, I take, queen d7, king g8. Now, this kind of looks, like, you're threatening queen takes g5, and yeah, what sort of attack have you got as white? Maybe not very much. Only you do, because you've got this move bishop f6, threatening queen g7 mate, and after takes you go queen d5 check, and you win the rook. That's a really difficult tactic to spot. I certainly hadn't spotted it. So yeah, but Eline played queen h4, which is slightly less good, but actually yeah, I think would be the choice of most human players, I think, in this situation, if they even found it. I mean, so yeah, I mean, we've got lots of threats here. I mean, we're threatening queen h6 check, bishop h6 check, and we're also threatening stuff like rook e1 when the queen doesn't really have good squares. So black played rook f7, takes, and now a very cunning move, rook e1. I don't know whether this came as a shock to Eline, but her reaction here was not good, and really the first serious mistake of the game, and unfortunately that was enough to to lose the game. That's I mean, basically black had to play queen takes e1 here, queen takes e1 and rook e8, and it's a very interesting position. I mean, actually, black's got decent material, for the queen, a knight and a pawn, and quite well placed pieces as well. The bishop on d4. The white king is a little bit open, and that's always worrying with a queen because the queen's perfect at giving checks and forking stuff. But yeah, I mean, black is pretty solid. I mean, this knight can come to f6. You can, get stuff onto e4. It feels like, black should not be losing this, well, my engines, well, they carried on for hundreds of moves, but basically that, black was holding this. It was. I'll just give you one example here. For example, this is dragon against stockfish. It went queen d1, knight f6, g3 h5, a4, king g7, queen f1, bishop b2. Queen a6, queen d6, bishop d4, check. There, rook e7, and then black settles back into a fortress. I mean, basically, you want to get rid of the bishop for the knight. You want to make sure that you've still got something on the queen side to stop that a pawn, and then you just set up a fortress like this. And yeah, this was drawn a few moves later. Used to be that engines didn't recognise fortresses very well, but nowadays they've got quite a good clue as well. They don't see everything, but they do understand quite a few. So I mean, that was really black's only move, and I'm pretty sure that would be sufficient for a draw objectively. And I don't know. I didn't get the feeling that it was horrifically complicated necessarily for black to hold this. You just got to have a little think, get yourself settled, adjust into the new situation, and then I think you're going to make it. But Eline played queen d6, and I'm not quite sure what she'd missed. I don't know whether she thought that that rook e7 check was coming, but yeah, simply queen h7 check is just really strong. I mean, you can't play something like king f8. I've just got bishop h6 check, so you've got to go bishop g7. and now I've just got this move rook f1 check. I mean, you can't move away. I just take the bishop. You've got to go knight f6, and then rook takes f6 check, and here Eline resigned. I was a little bit surprised when she resigned because queen f6 takes. It's not 100% clear yet that white's completely winning. Now, there is, a good sequence here: queen h4 and queen f2 check. And if you go to e6, for example, I go queen c5, and I'm hitting multiple pawns and threatening queen c6. King g6 is a bit more natural, and then queen c2 check, queen c5. Yeah, I mean, black's not in great shape. You're threatening queen c6. You've got, pawns. Obviously, it's not going to go well for black. And my engines were winning this game, but I thought, maybe tension of the occasion. Things can always go wrong. It might have been worth just punting this. I don't think anyone would have complained if Eline had carried on. But objectively, of course, black's absolutely correct. That this is losing, and I can imagine maybe having missed queen takes h7, or somehow had some sort of hallucination or whatever, that you just want to get the game finished with as quickly as possible. So that was a really unfortunate end to what was shaping up to be a really tough struggle there. But the game was really, really interesting. I mean, I liked very much just the courage of playing 1d4. A move that you've barely ever played before in such a crucial game. And and of course the choice is super hyper aggressive as well, the 4 pawns. It's funny, I had a little look. I was wondering, because obviously Machteld's brothers are Lucas van Foreest and Jordan van Foreest, and that's pretty good, really. I was wondering whether they maybe were experts in the 4 pawns, but no, I haven't. They play all sorts of openings against the King's Indian, but no, none of those. I also had a look at Arnold and Dirk van Foreest, but they were both born in the 1860s, so I didn't think that they would have had much influence on this opening choice. Those are Machteld's, I guess, great grandfathers, or so it's but I mean, I love this opening choice, and it was I think that I'm not sure that that playing this opening for the first time necessarily came super easy for Machteld. The move like d6, for example, but the aggression was there. She was going for the attack. Just kept on going forwards with the pieces, which fits the 4 pawns perfectly, and she definitely got a reward for that boldness. When Eline went wrong in the complications. So great game from both players. I'm sure the first of many great fights that these two players are going to have. I mean, it's all on the last round, really. Machteld is leading now with 3. There's Eline on 2.5. There was another really tough game between Anna Haast, who was on 2 out of 3, and Maaike Keetman. Anna was sort of seemed to be kind of cruising in a way in a slightly better queenless middle game. But then Maaike started playing with enormous power and won a great game in the end and finished it off beautifully. So those players are both on 2, and then we've got Anna-Maja Kazarian, who won a lovely little game today, and then Robin has got 1 point. Going to be a very interesting last round. Still, a lot for a lot of players to play for. Just want to, hopefully, going to be able to annotate another game and hopefully make another video about it. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed that. If you liked the video, why not give a like? Subscribe to the channel. Make me happy. Take a look at my new course, the Silicon Road to Chess Improvement Chessable course. 20 hours of me speaking, that can't be too bad, can it? And or the book, which I really do like as well. And all about engine chess, how to work with your engines, and some of the amazing games that engines play. But otherwise, thanks very much for watching the video, and hope to see you at the next video. Thanks for watching.